Hi, and welcome all Azure learners. So you want to know the difference between ExpressRoute and Azure VPN? Well, you're in the right place. My name's Hanna Engel. I'm a Microsoft technical trainer, and this is Tech Tips. So what is ExpressRoute and VPN, and why is it important? Why are we even talking about it? Well, we know that the cloud is the place to be right now, but customers usually migrate to the cloud gradually. It means that there might be some legacy applications, some legacy infrastructure still on premises. Now, what options do we have when we want to communicate two networks together? Well, the easiest would be to simply leave our network, go to the internet through the internet, and enter the network again. But then we'd have to traverse through firewalls. We'd be treated simply like a foreign traffic, which is not exactly what we want. We want to extend our environment so that the deployments both in the cloud and on premises work seamlessly together. We don't want anyone to be able to capture and read our internal communication. And that's where hybrid connectivity fits right in. In Azure, we have three methods of joining our cloud and on-premises networks together. The first one, a VPN, and then within the VPN, we have two options. We have site-to-site, so just like the name suggests, we connect a network to a network, or point-to-site. We connect a point, a device, with a site, a network. Then we have ExpressRoute. And then the third option is called Azure Virtual WAN, which actually combines both VPN and ExpressRoute all together, where all networks can communicate with each other. Okay, so now you know you want to communicate your on-prem environment with Azure. But should you go for VPN or ExpressRoute? Well, the answer is always, it's never simple. All lawyers and IT developers say, it depends. And it depends in this instance as well. So in order to understand the differences between VPN and ExpressRoute, let's first take a look at how those deployments look like so that we can compare them later. Okay, so let's take a look at my whiteboard. And what I'm going to draw is going to be a VPN side-to-side deployment. So here we're connecting two networks. And as you can see, we have the VNet, the Azure VNet, and our on-premises network. And the situation is following. So in Azure, in our VNet, we have a subnet where we deployed a virtual machine where our application runs. But this application needs to be able to communicate with our database that runs in our on-premises network. In this network, we have router to be able to communicate with the rest of the world, or rather, let the rest of the world communicate with us. This router has public IP address. Okay, now the task is following. We want to enable the application running on a virtual machine in Azure to be able to communicate with our database on premises. How can we make it work with VPN? Well, the very first thing is we need to deploy a network gateway, but not so fast because that's not the very first step. First, we need a place where we can deploy this network gateway. And this place is another subnet. But we cannot call the subnet whatever we want. We cannot call it Pink Unicorn. We can't call it subnet 2. The subnet needs to have a very specific name. And I hope it won't come as a surprise. This name is Gateway Subnet. Okay, so now we have the subnet. Now we have the name of the subnet. So what about the size? Well, you can go as low as /29, but if I were to recommend something, I would say go/27. Why? Well, from the same network gateway, you can have both ExpressRoute and VPN connections. But in order to make it work, your subnet must be big enough. So if you create your subnet with a size /27, then you make sure that if you change your mind, if there's some development happening in your environment, you have the option to deploy both VPN and ExpressRoute from the same network gateway. But you can't make it from Azure portal. You can configure this sort of connection through command line. Okay, so we have our gateway subnet. Now we can deploy our resource, which will be network gateway. And we specify the type of network gateway as a VPN. Of course, at the same time, we add a public IP address to our network gateway. And now we're done, right? We can start the connection. Well, not so fast. First, we need to explain to our network gateway, hey, this is the IP address, this is the router that I actually want to connect to. So how can we make it work? Well, we deploy another resource called local network gateway. And in this resource, we provide the public IP address of our on-premises router. Another important thing, in this gateway subnet, where we deployed our network gateway, we can only have network gateway. We're not supposed to deploy any other resources besides that network gateway. Okay, so then we come back to on-premises, we configure our router, our device. Well, how we do it, it depends on the type of router that you have. And once the router is configured, we can establish connection. Okay, so let's look at that connection. Let's talk a bit about the characteristics of this connection. Well, the first characteristic is the fact that this connection goes through the public internet. And what are the repercussions of this fact? Well, if we don't have internet connection, we don't have a VPN connection, unfortunately. Another one is we can deploy the fanciest, the biggest, the most expensive VPN network gateway SKU, because there are different SKUs, there are different types of those network gateways, each allowing different bandwidth. But if our internet connection is slow, unfortunately, our VPN connection is going to be slow as well. So that's the downside of the VPN connection, that it always depends on the speed of our internet, and no internet, no VPN connection for us. But VPN connection, because it goes through the public internet, it is always encrypted. So we create this IPsec ECAT tunnel. Okay, so this is a VPN connection. What about ExpressRoute? So we look at the whiteboard again, and we see a similar situation. We also have a VNet in our Azure environment deployed in East US, and we have our on-premises network in, let's say, in Berlin. Now, we don't want VPN, we want ExpressRoute. So what we need to do, if we have already deployed the network gateway, then we can add the ExpressRoute connection. Of course, if we have the appropriate size of the subnet. But in this situation, let's say that we haven't deployed the network gateway yet. So we need to do it again. We create, first of all, the subnet called gateway subnet with the right size. Then we deploy the resource itself, network gateway. We specify the type of connection, so ExpressRoute. And now we can establish connection with our own premises. Now you can see that I'm drawing two connections because whenever we establish a connection with ExpressRoute, we always get this double connectivity. We always get two connections running at the same time. That's the first thing. Then another thing about ExpressRoute is the fact that the connection doesn't go through the internet. I could draw it better like this, so you can really see that it doesn't go through the internet. Okay, but you might ask, how come? How come that my connection doesn't go through to the internet? I don't have a physical cable connecting me to any Microsoft data center. Well, very good question, by the way, thank you. The reason why the ExpressRoute connection doesn't go to the internet is because the connection goes through something called Microsoft Backbone. And again, what is Microsoft Backbone? Microsoft Backbone is the physical connections, physical cables connecting all Microsoft data centers together. Data centers and point of presence or meet me locations. Those points of presence or meet me locations, they are not necessarily data centers. They are places where all networks connect together. Let's just put it this way. So our connection travels from our data center in East US through Microsoft Backbone, through our data centers, through the private connectivity, through this private connectivity, up to the closest point of contact or meet me location. But if you look closely, then you'll see that there is this part of connection from the point of presence or meet me location to our office that actually there is no cable, right, connecting my office to the point of presence. If I'm already there, if I'm in the meet me location, then it's great. I can leverage ExpressRoute Direct, but let's say that's not the case. What can I do? Well, in order to provision this connection, you need to contact a third-party provider. You need to reach out to your partner asking, hey, could you please provide me this part of the connection? And I also mentioned that the connection is private. It's private because it doesn't go to the public internet. It travels through private networks, through Microsoft Backbone. But because the connection is private, it is not encrypted. Well, how come, you might ask? Well, it's not encrypted because it travels through the private connections. It doesn't go to the public internet. But if you really want the encryption, that's something that you can configure. You can create a VPN tunnel inside of your ExpressRoute connection. Another thing about ExpressRoute is that you can connect the whole world with that connection. There are different SKUs. There's a local, standard, and premium SKU. And depending on your needs, depending if you need to connect within the same region, the same geography, or throughout the world, you will make your choice of the right SKU, of the right type of ExpressRoute. Yet another thing with ExpressRoute is that you don't only connect with your Azure resources. With ExpressRoute connection, you can also connect to your M365 applications. Okay, so with that, to recap, I hope now you see the differences between a VPN and ExpressRoute. The first difference is a VPN connection goes through the internet, and ExpressRoute is a private connection, doesn't go to the public internet. Another difference, VPN connection is always encrypted, ExpressRoute is not, but you can establish a VPN connection inside of ExpressRoute connection. Another difference, VPN connection depends on the internet. It depends on the speed of the internet. The ExpressRoute does not. What does it mean? It means that you specify the speed that you want to get from your ExpressRoute connection, and you are sure that this is the speed of your connection that you're going to receive. So the connection is stable, more predictable. Another difference with ExpressRoute, you can't only connect to your Azure resources, but also to M365 applications, and the connection is always redundant. You always get two connections coming from your ExpressRoute. And with ExpressRoute, you need a third-party provider to provision the connection from the point of presence, from Meet Me location to your office. So I hope that helps. I hope I managed to clarify a little bit the difference between ExpressRoute connection and Azure VPN. If you still have any questions, if you have any doubts, if you have any feedback, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Hanna Engel. I'll be more than happy to help you, more than happy to connect. So with that, I thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and hopefully see you on another tech tips video.